Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the ordinary meeting of Council, Tuesday the 16th of December 2025, commencing at 5:30. Kaya Nala Karak Nunga Khan, Khan Karak Ninja Buja. We acknowledge the traditional custodians and the lands in which we meet. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge the recent tragic events in Bondi and extend Council's heartfelt sympathies to our local Jewish community and anyone that has been affected by such a tragic event. I would also like to congratulate the Cherry Harmony Festival for another incredibly successful year. It's a very small little band of workers that pull this together every year, and once again it was a phenomenal success. So congratulations. Coming into the silly season, also known as Christmas, I'd just like to just remind everyone to maybe look out for your neighbour next door. Be kind to yourself and to others. We are also heading into the dreaded fire season. So please ensure that you have your fire plan. And I'd like to extend my thanks to the first responders, our retail staff, which are always under the pump this time of the year, and our hospitality staff who are under the pump all year, but especially this time of the year. Attendance apologies.
Thank you, Madam President. We have listed an apology from Councillor Tempera. However, quite obviously she is sitting in the council chair, so that record will be corrected. And we do have an apology from Councillor Wilcox, who is unwell at the moment.
Thank you. And we have no approved leave of absence. Declarations of interest.
Madam President, I have one impartiality interest from Councillor Batink in relation to agenda item 9.9.2, which has to do with a Shire funding support request for a grant via the state government for Crowia Village. And the nature of the interest held is that Councillor Batink is the president of the Crowia Village Inc.
Thank you. Section 5, public question time. Response to public questions taken on notice. There are nil. Public question time. So this is the only time during the meeting that you can address council. You do get 3 minutes. It doesn't need to be what is on the agenda. It can be any matter that you would like to raise. And I just ask that you state your name and address at the beginning of your presentation. Is there anyone, we will attempt to answer all questions as they come through, but any that we cannot answer, that we taken on notice and they will be answered at a later time. Is there anyone that has a question or would like to address council? Thank you. If you'd just like to come forward to the lectern. Thank you. Not on, Sham. Yeah, that's right.
There's a little tiny button.
Oh, see, you can't leave. You're the only one that knows how to turn the microphone on.
She did before.
Can we use this one? Yeah. Sham, can we use Councillor Wilcox's? You sure can. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, hi. My name's Holly Lamy. I live at 20 Blackbutt Drive in Manjimup, and we have the property 32 Carey Street in Manjimup. My husband's currently away. He wanted to be here, but is looking after aged parents in the UK. Where this has all come as a very big shock. We're looking to waive the penalty fee for the application of respective planning approval for a holiday house. So when we first came to Manjimup a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, we had investment property that we purchased, which was in use. So it was already a rental. And I thought we thought that was perfect for just, a little investment to continue with. And when we spoke to the estate agent, nothing was brought up about anything about approvals or anything. We didn't really ask the question either, I must admit. Then we went to the visitor centre and put the property up and got a package there, and little flag wasn't raised there either. So again, it's a bit of a shock that's come to us. And then there was a request for people with accommodation to go to the strata meeting, which we did, and we paid. We joined and we paid, and we had the strata for a year before anything was raised again. So this has all come as a big shock, and we would like you to take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yeah, you'll have to take a seat too.
Obviously, still works after it. I basically just wanted to, Ed Fallons. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things that I think for a long time I've heard different opinions on our development. One is the bottle shop, because we've got the redevelopment thing in. So one is the amount of time. I just wanted to illustrate. So what we actually did is we purchased the leasehold on there just, I think it was 3 weeks before COVID. And so we had actually put in a development application for the bottle shop, and we actually got it approved. So it's full retail with sides. We actually started constructing the walls and all the rest of it, and COVID hit. So it was the only thing we could operate. So we pulled it all down and kept operating. And then at that point, there was a 2-year extension, automatic extension, which meant we had 4 years. And so we delayed it. Instead of being the first thing, we made it the last thing. When the 2 years was up, we waited a few months, and then we contacted liquor licensing. It took 1.5 years for liquor licensing to come, and then we asked to reduce the size of it because of the amount of building, so we halved it, and that took a few months. The liquor licensing said that they were happy to approve it as half, provided council was happy with that. So we contacted the council, and they said no, they wanted us to put back through. So there was a few months, and this application tonight is 5 months. So we lodged this 5 months ago. Do you know what I mean? So there's over 2 years just waiting for liquor licensing in this meeting tonight. So, and we just basically want to reduce the size of it. The other thing is the car parking out the back. I know I've had lots of comments that it was conditioned. So when I took the lease, I got a whole heap of people down there. It was Andrew Campbell, I think Brian, Jason, I think you were there, Jocelyn, I'm sure you were there. The whole thing came down, and I stood in the backyard and I said, am I responsible as the leaseholder, because we're not under the lease? Do you know what I mean? It's the POSs are responsible for the car park. I said, is there any possibility before I sign this that I'll be made to do something with this car park? And the response was no. In fact, we're going to build in to it that we also make it clear we're not going to do the laneway, which is written in the approval, says that the council, it's as is and it won't be done up. And then we put in an application for, and they said what we'll do is we had pre-approval for the little alfresco out the front, because we got a credit for car parks. A part of the agreement was we got 60 bays or something extra that we never had to account for because the brewery took space away from required car parks or out the back. And it clearly says that what was built in there is that in the second phase, we look to do an alfresco out the back. And it says in there that alfresco out the back at that point would trigger a reassessment of the car park. But at that stage, it was noted the council will look to negotiate not requiring the extra car bays and at that point we will look at improving the maintenance of the car park. So that second stage has never taken place. Do you know what I mean? So, and the other thing is that I've had a lot of comments.
I'll just let you know, Ed, that's 3 and a bit minutes, so
Yeah.
we just, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I had a lot of comments that we've been notified to do up the car park, but we shouldn't receive notifications. That's the POSs, and they're adamant they've never received one. Do you know what I mean? So they're adamant they've never. And can I make one more quick point? I just wanted to say tonight that the conditions that we've got, so we're building 2 nib walls basically and putting up 2 roller doors. And we've got to do a report on how materials and equipment will be delivered and removed from the site, how materials and equipment will be stored on site, parking arrangements for contractors, construction waste disposal strategy and waste disposal bins, details of cranes, large trucks, similars, equipment, how risk of wind and waterborne erosion and sediments will be minimised, other matters likely to impact surrounding properties. We're building 2 nib walls of 4 metres and putting in 2 roller doors. So I'm going to bring a chippy who's going to come one day and do it, and a roller door company that's already quoted us is going to do it the second day. And so, and all of that site is private land. We'll shut the bottle shop, and it's all there, and it's going to get taken away by the contractors. All I'm saying, I've never seen, like, if you think that's all the other developments I've seen, that's more, it's a hell of a lot of red tape for 2 roller doors and a couple of nib walls. Do you know what I mean? And there's 3 or 4 things, right next door to us at $500,000 operations. None of them have got those conditions. The only conditions I went right back through, the only things with those conditions that even mimic them are a couple of, little mine sites. Gravel pits have got one of them. Do you know what I mean? That is 5 times to prepare that longer than it is to actually do the job. And that's fine. But you know what I mean? I think it needs to form a precedent. I don't think there'd ever be a development application that wouldn't have to lodge that and have it put as a prerequisite going forward. You know what I mean? Which is a lot of red tape. I thought we're trying to reduce red tape. I thought that was the idea, you know? Anyway, that's my 3 minutes.
Thank you. That's actually 5.5, but that's all right. Yeah, I was going to say. Thank you. Are there any other questions or statements? Nope. Fantastic. Thank you. 6 is presentation. 6.1 petitions, we have nil. 6.2 presentations, we have nil. 6.3 deputations, we have Alan from Anglicare. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, you can. And councillors, for this opportunity to speak to you this afternoon on
Thank you.
issue that is very important to your ratepayers. And I'll go through it and I'll explain it to you.
Thank you.
If you read through the paperwork, it's far more in depth than what I'm going to give to you.
Thank you.
So, Ellen Rasmussen, Anglicare, Corner Rose and Mount Street's Manjimup. The deputation, Madam President and councillors, it's a proposal for ratepayers facing severe financial hardship. The amount of people that are involved in it at this stage, I wouldn't have a clue. I had 5, it got down to 4. That's when I spoke to you, Madam President. Now we've got it down to 1. Your finance department, rates department, will have a far better idea of what the actual situation is at the moment. But with that 1 person, I believe that they'll be up around the $5,000 mark about the middle of next year. So it's a current hardship, and this supports and addresses historical debts. And what we call a historical debt is a debt that's in excess of 2 years. The Ombudsman, he says 3 years, and I'll give you that and the Ombudsman report at the end of it. But these debts, they involve very complex issues, and hardship is a very complex beast to deal with. we've got stress, we've got trauma, we get depression, we've got family violence, we've got addictions, we've got coercive controls. We've got, and they result in disengagement and worsening hardship. And the proposed solution is a 75-25. And it also looks at responsibility. Because in a lot of these cases, the Shire is as much responsible for it as what the ratepayer is. You haven't taken into account the person's details, you haven't the hardship that they're going through and what their things are. And you'll see that in this document, in great detail, is hardship and what it actually means and how it affects people. And especially when we get into trauma, and then we get vicarious trauma, and then we get intergenerational trauma. So we got the families, and they never get out of this. We sow the seeds for it, and it's a never-ending cycle. And that's what I'm trying to break. That's what we'd like to do. The figures that are in this were taken from the last census, 21, and the SAIFA figures are pretty much up to date. But the 2026 census that is about to come upon you is going to be a damn sight worse than what these figures are. And if you look at those figures, you've got an unemployment rate of over 30%. That is going to increase. It's not going to get any better. No, and that's only one part of hardship. And as I say, you've got other areas there with domestic violence and all the rest of the ills that are currently running through society. And when we look at the eligibility for it, we say the 75-25. Well, we aren't asking for the Shire to put their hand in their pocket at the beginning. What we're saying is the ratepayer will pay off their fair share of it. They'll do the 25% over a structured time, after which then the 75% kicks in. If they fail, then it goes right back to the beginning, everything's null and voided, and you take off with, if you want to throw them into court and all the rest of it, so be it. And that's how the system works. The protection of vulnerable residents is also covered in there. And that's very important because of areas of stigmatisation. People aren't going to come forward to you if they're in dire financial straits. This covers that, no? So it's a forward thinking, it shows empathy, and it shows compassion. So if you want to be seen as a Shire that has empathy, which is forward thinking, and demonstrates compassion, then you'll back this in. The benefits to the Shire, they enable you to recover a portion of the debt, okay? It reduces your legal frameworks and this type of thing. It prevents escalation. It reduces hardship. And it demonstrates a strong commitment to compassionate and responsible governance. That's what it does. I'm going to finish up because there's not a great deal of time left, but I'm going to leave you with an advocacy brief from the Ombudsman. And to advocate for legislative and policy reform, ensuring that local government in Western Australia do not take or sell the ratepayers, primary residents to recover unpaid rates when the ratepayer is in verified severe financial hardship. And as a financial counsellor, that is my job. That is Anglicare's job. That is what we do. And we advocate for people that are in these hardship positions. With the background of it, under the Local Government Act of 1995 WA, right? Councils may recover unpaid rates through property sale after 3 years of arrears. Okay? I'm saying 2. I'm bringing it in. I want to stop it before it gets to 3 years. Okay? The Ombudsman's WA Good Practice Guidance of 2020, it urges councils to prioritise hardship arrangements and treat property sale as a last resort. Despite guidance, there is no statutory prohibition against selling a home in hardship cases. And that's the case today. And that's part of the problem. In that a forced sale of a primary residence for rates arrears is disproportionate when the debt is minor compared to the property value. And I hope you can all understand that. Vulnerable ratepayers such as those experiencing unemployment, illness, domestic violence face compounded disadvantage if housing security is lost. Current protections rely on voluntary councils' policies and they create inconsistencies across the whole of Western Australia. An inconsistency, as you know, Madam President and Councillor De Campo, you and I have had these discussions on councils' inconsistencies. So the key principles, the proportionality enforcement measures must be proportionate to the debt and consider the social impact of losing a home. Severe hardship consideration. Verified hardship should trigger mandatory relief measures, not punitive enforcement. Fairness and transparency decisions should be subject to independent review before any property sale. Okay? So that's the deputation. That's what's in front of you. I would ask that haste be given to this proposal because it's not getting easier out there. 2026 is going to be one of the toughest years we've ever faced. No? What I'm seeing now is nothing to what the storm that is actually going to hit. So we need to do something. And this is a start. Okay? So thank you very much for your time. And I will give it over to Paul to also say a few words.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Do you want to wait until after Councillor Omade? You're into that? Yep. I mean, former councillor. Well, this is the same thing. Paul's speaking to this.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
And thank you, Alan, for your deposition. The 4, you said you had 5 clients, now there's 4 in this area, is that what you said? And do they have cumulative rate bills or are they this current year's rate?
No, they're accumulative.
Right. Okay.
They're accumulative. But what's happened is that those particular properties have been sold. So
Right.
the rates have been settled.
Okay, right.
There.
Right.
There.
Okay.
In Manjimup.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, we would.
No.
No. No.
No. Thank you.
Look, my card is in the back of these folders.
Thank you.
If you just want to say anything, any further questions, just give us a call. Yeah, I will have a picture.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, hang on. Oh, thanks.
Thank you. And it was very remiss of me not to acknowledge former Shire President Omade in the gallery, and I apologise for that.
Oh, no.
But very happy for you to talk to this. Thank you.
So hurt. Madam President, my name is Paul Omade. I reside at 14586 Vass Highway, Eastbrook. And I'm here today to support Alan Rasmussen in his work as an advocate for Anglicare. I've known Alan for quite some time, and I am aware in the field that he works in, and the changing need that's occurring at the rate of knots. You might recall back during COVID, when we received some funds from the state government to assist families at risk. And I think Councillor Darren will remember the number of staff and councillors who did a ring around just to assess what the level of need was. And I think that was a successful thing for the Shire to get involved in. As you'd be well aware, when it comes to rates, if you're a business house or a farmer, your rates are tax deductible. If you're a householder, they're not. And you might have heard me say in the past that we're approaching the tipping point where families, particularly families with children, are getting to a point where they are really suffering from financial duress. It only takes the fridge to break down or the car radiator to go, and it tips them into a situation where they just can't continue. And I agree with Mr. Rasmussen that in the coming times, you know, particularly with cost of living pressures that are probably unprecedented, particularly power costs, you know, you only have to talk to any business person around, but that reflects also in some of the families that are suffering the same level. So what I'm suggesting is, first of all, to commend Mr. Rasmussen for the work that he does, but also to ask the council to consider a holistic approach to how our rates, the Shire rates, are impacting on families. And in that, I would suggest, and I know we've had a rate review, and I can't really recall what the total impact of that was, but I think it's time that the council looked at differential rating. If you will recall with the debate about minimum rates, our minimum rate was, I think, $11.50. It's now gone to $12.50 or something like that, about $100. But in that rating contingent, there's over 950 ratepayers. Now, some of those ratepayers are living in single residential houses, like, for example, the wooden houses in Pemberton, the historical area, or on a quarter-acre block. There are also people within that unimproved rating contingent that are living on acreage, that have got more than one building on their property. And what I'm saying is, all I want to know is that my council is giving due consideration to a number of issues and coming up with a solution. Now, in amongst that 960 odd ratepayers that are minimum ratepayers, a $100 increase would not impact on them significantly, particularly the upper echelon. And whether it's the valuation that needs to be addressed or the actual rating component itself, I do think that for the council to assist the people that Mr. Rasmussen is helping, they're going to need to have capital to do that, whether a total rate increase or a change in the value, either in the differential rate. We've always kept it very simple. We've had unimproved rates, gross rental values, and unimproved values. But I think it's time that we had a broader look. That's all I'm asking. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it, but I'll be prepared to assist. So with that, I think that's all I would need to say, Madam President. Thank you for having me back. I'm not here to haunt you. I'm here to help Mr. Rasmussen. Thank you.
He didn't need to. Alan did. It was all good. Yeah.
Stands on its own. 1995.
Thank you, Mr. Omido. We've got to get it in there at least once in a meeting. Lovely. Thank you both for that deputation. 6.4 delegate reports, there are nil, and 6.5 conference reports, there are nil. Item 7, confirmation of the previous minutes. Councillor Darren.
I move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the council held on the 25th of November 2025 be confirmed as true and accurate record.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor De Campo. Can we put that to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Carried 8-0. Thank you. Okay. 8. Gosh, there's a few of these. Motions of which previous notice has been given. 8.1, notice of motion, Councillor De Campo, proposed strategic investment towards a 4-star Hilton Hotel in Manjimup. Councillor De Campo.
Thank you, Madam President. And I too stand with the Jewish community of Australia today, and their loss would be incomprehensible, and it's nice that we have acknowledged that. Also acknowledge the press here for the first time in I don't know how long, so thank you for coming for the last meeting of the year, and let's hope it's a monthly event next year. I'd like to move that Council direct the Chief Executive Officer to restart negotiations with appropriate hotel groups on the development of a 4 to 4.5 star hotel complex with a potential contribution of council funds and land if required to partially capitalise the project. And point 2 on that, provide a report to council in time for the budget deliberations for the 2026-27 budget, including the potential impact on the long-term financial position and a cost-benefit analysis in relation to the council investment into a private venture for the broader community using the strategic assets reserved for any funds needed. And point 3, investigate in negotiations for council to take an equity position in the hotel for its investment.
Councillor Mylan.
Madam President, I have an amendment to move which has been tabled. Can I speak to that?
You can.
Or can I ask if...
Did you want to second it first?
Yeah.
Can you?
Oh, do I need to second?
Yes,
Yeah,
I need a seconder.
Okay,
and then
I'll second that
you can
motion.
put your
And
amendment.
then put my amendment.
Thank you.
You're in remain standing.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to move an amendment to that motion of Councillor De Campo, which is to direct the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate with a leading hotel provider or providers on the development of a 4.5 star hotel complex in Manjimup with a potential land and cash contribution from the Shire. Point 2, provide a report to Council in time for budget deliberations for the 2026-27 budget, including potential impact on the long-term financial position, potential sources of funding and cost-benefit analysis in relation to a council investment into a private venture for the broader community using the strategic asset reserves for funding. And point 3, investigate in negotiations for council to take an equity position in the hotel in return for its investment.
Thank you, Councillor Mylan. Councillor De Campo, did you want to speak to your motion? Is that right? Oh, okay. We need a seconder for the amendment. Yeah. Seconder, thank you. Councillor Batink. Do you want to speak to the amendment, please?
Well, okay, thanks, Madam President. Yeah, I wasn't sure that you actually read out my amendment. I think that's what you actually did, Councillor Campo. It looked like that. Okay. So we will deal with the one that's on the piece of paper, I assume.
Thank you. The one that was distributed.
I've made these amendments, which is probably explanatory, I think. It doesn't sort of tie us to a particular hotel group. It just requires that the Chief Executive Officer continue negotiations. It's something that we've done in the past. It's a bit of a second go at it, to tell you the truth. And I really think that this whole idea of Manjimup getting a 4.5 star accommodation was something that we've had a go at, and I don't think really we've succeeded. So this is an attempt to further that idea. A high quality accommodation for Manjimup would be a real asset. It's part of our strategic plan going back over the years, was to attract someone with a high quality level of accommodation. It doesn't tie us to anything except for us to get on the front foot and negotiate with a suitable, experienced operator to be able to provide something for the man, to see what sort of investment they might need, either through Shire seeking funding through other contributors, or co-investment from any other sources. So I commend it to you.
Thank you. Councillor Batink, as seconder, would you like to speak to the amendment? Reserve your right. Done. Are there any speakers against the amendment? 2? Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Moylan, for moving an amendment that says exactly the same as what I moved. It's an interesting situation we have, and in our corporate, in fact, in our corporate business plan, B31 says seize initiatives and opportunities as they arise to promote the livability of our communities, Or B12.2 says explore economic development and opportunities in the Shire district. B17.1 says seize opportunities and initiatives as they arise. And B31 says the same thing. And in our strategic community plan, which I'm sure you've all read, B2 says attract business class accommodation services to Manjimup, which we haven't done, unfortunately. B3 says build on the Manjimup town's capacity as a regional service centre for Warren Blackwood. And B12 says establish and maintain relationships that may assist in the prosperity of our region. There has been some mention that, you know, it's this project potentially, if it was to come to pass, isn't in our strategic community plan or in our corporate business plan. The reality is these plans change, and in fact in this plan it says that we will continue to provide a HAC service. It says we'll continue to provide services to the elderly. It says we'll continue to provide a community bus service. But I got thinking once we had an actual hotel operator come as with an interest in Manjimup, that over the last 30 years, and I did some research, we've had hundreds of millions of dollars pumped into this community through transition funds, multiple transition funds from the timber industry and various other things that really haven't had anything come of it. We then had the super, and that's without super towns. So over 200 million has been pumped into this community through transition funds and various other things. Then we had the super towns project, which started about 43 million. It got graded back a little bit, but still 30 odd million, plus a hospital. And out of that, we got a Blue Scope Hilton. That's what I call it. It's on the record. It's what it looks like. It comes out of Wyala, I guess. That's where Blue Scope's done. But that wasn't the community expectation. The community's expectation was a 4 to 4.5 star business class hotel. So that got me thinking, how do we stimulate that? How do we put one to the other? And then I got thinking about something else that's in the agenda tonight. And that is that we're providing a letter of support for a private operator to go and get state government funds to build 36 executive houses in town. The state government provides lots of support for different private enterprise. They have done through transition packages, and they provide lots of support for builders. They provide lots of support for businesses, but local government doesn't. And if we want to make a change, and we want to make that change significant in our town, we're going to have to look at providing some support. And a Hilton or a hotel of similar ilk in this community will be a game changer for tourism. So, like Councillor Moylan, I concur with your change, although it was only one word different. I think that I also think that this motion, if anything does come of it, because it is right now just an idea and a thought bubble, they may say no. It doesn't commit us to anything. So I commend the motion to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor De Campo. Are there any speakers against? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Mylan, did you want to close? Okay, can we put that to the vote then, councillors? All those in favour? And against is carried 8-0, which now becomes a substantive. That's why I have a piece of paper. It becomes a substantive motion. Councillor De...
Hasn't had the opportunity to move.
Thank you.
Sorry, hasn't had the opportunity to
Speak on his. Yep. Councillor De Campo, did you want to speak on the substantive motion?
Well, with the fear of repeating myself, and of course I do. No, I think it's all been said. I think this is a very good motion. It's a good opportunity to get some economic development going if it does. If you see where the Hiltons have been built, and I only use the Hilton because they have been built, in fact, in Busselton and Albany, I mean, it's revitalised the Albany foreshore and it's certainly revitalised the Busselton foreshore. And if we are to take advantage of those aeroplanes coming into Busselton and we want to move from a one-day stay or a day visitor statistic to a 1 to 2 night visitor statistic, we need to elevate the level of accommodation and the star level of accommodation for people to come and stay. If you think of the UIC event that's coming up, and if we had that accommodation here for the UIC event that's coming up and then up, 15,000 people will go through that event. That's all being pushed to the Capes because we don't have the appropriate accommodation here. It will be a game changer if we're able to get it off the ground, and I think we'll be commended. There will also be some criticism, I'm sure. Others would like to say, why wouldn't you give us some money? But at some point you've got to pick a winner, and you've got to make sure that it's done through very, very appropriate channels, like business cases and like those things, but it will be a game changer for this town. And if you talk to the tourism industry, as I think a number of you have, in fact, Gavin Booth called the other day, he was elated with the idea because they are investing a lot of money out there at Wine and Truffle. I think that's what it's called still, is it?
Hound and Hunter.
Hound and Hunter. They desperately need, they're bringing American tours to town. They desperately need good accommodation because Americans won't stay, I don't know, something about one bathroom, two people, one bathroom, one person or something, but they're bringing 4 of these tours a year into Manjimup, and they desperately need good accommodation or they won't stay here. So it's something we need to look at doing and look at stimulating ourselves, and if we have to capitalise it ourselves, then I think that's what we should look at doing too. So I commend the motion to you.
Thank you, Councillor De Campo. Are there any other speakers? Would you like to close? Are you happy with that? Thank goodness. Okay.
Happy with that.
Fantastic. Let's put it to the vote, please, councillors. All those in favour? Is carried 8-0. Thank you. So, just recap it again.
This is the only exercise I get for the month. Yeah.
8.2, notice of motion, Councillor De Campo. Proposal to introduce a cap on minimum rate, Donley River Hut Precinct. Councillor De Campo.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move the motion that we direct the Chief Executive Officer to, 1, introduce a 32% concession off the minimum rate per clause 6.47 of the Local Government Act of 1995 for the Donley River Hut Precinct to be considered through the 26-27 draft budget deliberations, and 2, provide a concession to rates of 32% off the minimum rate per clause 6.47 of the Local Government Act of 1995. There we go, got it in again. Charged in the 2025-26 Shire budget for hut owners, lessees in the Donley River Hut Precinct.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Mylan. Councillor Campo.
Thank you, Madam President. This is back in front of us because we didn't have an absolute majority last time. I'm hoping we will this time. The reality is, again, the arguments are all the same. The Donley, we have 10 huts on our side of the Donley, and it is serviced by a DBCA road. We charge them, I think, to go down and inspect the huts. There is a charge. If you compare it to, say, Windy Harbour, we run at a loss of about $167,000 a year in Windy Harbour from what we provide. In Windy Harbour, they get rubbish for free, or people get rubbish for free, they get water for free, and they pay the minimum rate and a lease, which is similar to what the Donley hut owners pay. That we maintain the roads, we maintain the boat ramp, we maintain all of the other services in Windy Harbour. So I think it's only fair to show the Donley hut owners that we acknowledge that we don't grade the road, we don't build, or we haven't built the car park. In fact, $250,000 came from one of the transition packages to build the car park at the Donley. One of the timber industry reduction transition packages built the car park at the Donley. We didn't even contribute to that. And we certainly don't contribute to any river directional markings or at the river mouth. That's all DBCA. So I think it's only fair that we provide a small reduction in rates, and I think this equates to about $3,500 a year across the 10 huts. Might be a touch more, but it's not over $4,000. And if you consider that this was also supposed to be in conjunction or in unison with the lease or the review of other leases throughout the Shire, and that's Broke Inlet, Gardner, and one other facility, I think. I can't remember. And that hasn't happened. Unfortunately, there are mitigating circumstances. It hasn't happened because it hasn't, or the ball has been dropped, but there are issues at Broke, and of course Gardner's difficult again, so that hasn't happened. But we did give an undertaking to the Donley hut owners that we would do those other areas. So it's only fair, I think, that given that we've done the Donley huts, that we provide a small concession because it literally costs us nothing. And I know that I voted for this in the first place because it was the right thing to do, but it's now also the right thing to do to give them a small concession. So I commend the motion to you.
Councillor Mylan, did you want to speak too?
Yeah. I'd like to speak to the motion too. Thanks, Madam President. Just a bit of the history of how this came about. the huts down at the Donnelly, like the hut at Broke Inlet, which is under the exact same circumstance, and it's in a national park, they pay lease to them, TBCA, and it's the same as the Gardner huts. This only came to our attention on council when the hut owners group from the Donnelly River, lower Donnelly River hut owners group, spoke amongst themselves and said, look, we think we should pay some rates to the Shire of Manjimup. There's people on the other side of the river are being charged rates from Augusta. And so they approached us. No one from here they'd probably still be paying no rates like everyone else right now if they hadn't come to us first. They wrote to us. Brad Russell, their chair, came and gave a deputation to our Shire Council and suggested that they wish to pay rates. It's an unusual thing to do, but they did say, look, we feel like we should. And however, it should be at a discounted rate. Then following that, after that happened, we then considered the matter and we decided that we would rate them, but we wouldn't rate them at the full, we would rate them at the full rate. So by them coming to us and actually raising the issue, we've just dealt with them. We haven't dealt with other hut owners in exactly the same situation. We've let them go, without attending to it in the rates review. This only happened because they came and spoke to us. Councillor De Campo has made a number of points. They do not have any walkways down there at the Donnelly River. They don't have access by car. They don't have the rates. They don't have the rubbish. They don't have water. No one really goes down to check on what's going on there. They don't have a ranger, someone there to look after, a caretaker. They look after it all themselves. I believe that group take a very strong responsibility for caring for that part of the coastline. I know and have participated some years ago in their coastal pickup, where they go around with bags and pick up the flotsam and jetsam that's come ashore and take full responsibility for all that. They've installed defibrillators down there. They have 1 metre around their hut and they can't live in their hut permanently. They're not allowed to do that. They have 1 metre around their hut and people can come and camp straight outside their door. And I've actually seen it with someone pitching their tent straight outside on a little patch of grass straight out in front of their hut. So I know that all rate payers aren't equal. And, we've had this argument, well, someone else who lives a long way out of town and so on. But some are more unequal than others. And in this case, I think this group of people have a particular different sort of circumstance. It was raised by former councillor Omade about differential rating, and it is something that we need to consider from a number of angles. If we continue to rate them at the full rate and don't rate other people in the same circumstance and don't provide the same type of service, that I don't know anyone else that hasn't got an access to their property. So I commend you in the sort of spirit of fair's fair. These are a group of people that came forward and suggested that they would pay rates at a discounted rate, and I think we should take them at their word and in good faith charge them a 32% discount. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mylan. Can I just ask a question? Can I just clarify the sequence of the rating of the Donnelly huts? That's not the way I remember that going.
Through you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Council has known about the Donnelly River huts for quite some time, since there was a significant report done for the other side of the Donnelly. In essence, Council sort of has kicked it down the road for quite some time about not rating them, even though under the Act we should be rating them. Council were aware of the Donnelly and the rates before the letter came from the association.
Madam President, can I
Question.
So would it be correct to say that we were aware of it, and of course we were, would it be correct to say that we then commenced the rating process and decision to rate them once they came forward and made their presentation, or did we commence that process prior to that?
I would have to check back on my records.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against the motion? Councillor Batink?
I just think that I'd like to support the officer recommendation that all the ratepayers pay the same, and I think reducing the rates would set a precedence for everyone else who feels that they don't get many services from the Shire, which in my area there's a lot of people who live very remote. And also I don't think there's a financial hardship clause here, that they're not claiming that. And that should be the only reason that we should probably look at reducing rates. And I think it would set a precedence for lots of groups to come forward and claim a discount. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Batink. Are there any other speakers for the notice of motion? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Darren, any other speakers? Councillor Darren?
I talk a lot, so yes. Well, I was on council when this got brought up, and it was actually when the Shire of Nannup, the Donnelly hut owners on the Nannup side, tried to get the alignment readjusted so that they would be included in the Shire of Manjimup rather than the Shire of Nannup, so they wouldn't be rated. And at that point in time, the decision of the state government was no, that they wouldn't realign the boundaries, and that in actual fact, rather than the Shire of Nannup not rating, it was actually that the Shire of Manjimup should be rating, and that was the point that we started discussions, and that was in my first term of Shire Council, so I'm going to go with about 2018, 2019 that was raised, but I digress. So we have had this debate a number of times, and the reason for it continues to come back to that there's not services provided directly at the front door. And Councillor Batink is right, we hear this all the time. There's not a footpath out front of my house, my road's not bitumised, there's not street lights, a whole range of reasons as to why someone believes that they should get a concession or an entire waiver on their rates. And the argument back to that I have always had is, as elected members, we should know that the rates contribute to a budget that goes well beyond what is at the end of your driveway. In actual fact, there is an entire book here of services that are provided by the Shire of Manjimup that rates pay for. Rates contribute to the budget that provides the services. And then usually where that discussion goes with a constituent is, well, I don't use all of those services. I don't use the library, and I don't go to the Aqua Centre. I don't drive that often all through the 7,000 square kilometres of the Shire, and therefore I don't use the roads, or I don't have kids and I don't walk down the footpath, so why should I have to contribute? And I challenge that because you might not use the library, you might not use the footpath, but your plumber and electrician and their families might do. The worker that works at Retrovision or Harvey Norman, where you buy your refrigerator or your washing machine, may use those services. The business owner that sells your carton of beer, sells the milk and bread and the extra things that you need, or the handyman store where you get your decking and your nails to fix up your hut or your house. Those workers, those families, those small business owners, they all need those services, and that is what this budget is about. That is what rates is about. It's about an equitable share where everybody contributes something to ensure that the Shire of Manjimup can make these communities livable. Because without those people who do use those services, where do you get your goods and services from? What is your community like? What are the events like? What is the community spirit like that you live in if those services aren't there because those people are not attracted and retained in this community because those things aren't there? So you might not use them directly, but indirectly you certainly do access them. But I want to come back for a moment to the direct benefits. And again, this is constantly spoken about of a footpath or a bitumised road or a street light. But there are a range of direct services that all of our ratepayers use all the time. And I'm going to give you two really good examples specifically related to the Donnelly huts. So in 2011, there was a parliamentary inquiry for shack sites in WA. That inquiry investigated whether to overturn the rights of the existing owners to occupy the 43 shacks at the mouth of the Donnelly River and either grant the public rights to them or order their demolition to create more public camping space in this area. The Shire of Manjimup put in a submission in advocating for the Donnelly River hut owners, and that submission called for the hut owners' occupancy to be legitimised through long-term leases, supported greater public access to the area, and it did not consider that the requirement that each individual hut be available to the public as to be a practical solution. It also supported the development of additional facilities for day use and provision of other facilities such as public toilets and waste. There's a second news story from the West Australian in 2011 where the Lower Donnelly River Association chairman Tony Ryan said, "Most families would happily agree to tougher building and health and safety standards as long as they were given more security over the leases that covered their shacks' land." The exact advocacy that the Shire of Manjimup included in their submission, and that condition was upheld by the parliamentary inquiry. So who provided those services? The Shire of Manjimup did. They did the pre and the post inspection of the huts. They provided the reports to DBCA that provided the guidance on how those hut owners could meet the standards so that they could obtain the long-term leases that they desired. That was the Shire of Manjimup. Our resources, our staffing, our money contributed to that. And this was a time that these hut owners didn't pay rates and didn't pay lease fees at all. And yet we provided those services directly to them. In a completely different vein, 2011 and 2022, bushfires tore through that area and the huts were under threat under both circumstances. In 2022, over 60 crews attended that fire, and that was made up also by volunteer bushfire fighters and emergency services personnel paid for by the Shire of Manjimup, employed by us. For those of you that have been sitting at this table when we've had a bushfire breakout, which we did at Windy Harbour earlier this year, the directors, the Shire President, the CEO, and a whole range of other staff contributed to the response of that bushfire. That's our staff that we pay for. That is a direct service that we make sure is on hand all the time to support those hut owners as well as everybody else in this community. So the fair and equitable way of dealing with this is to continue forward with minimum rates. That is the set. This is not a huge amount of money. This is minimum rates. And so that is the fair and equitable way, because when it comes to budget, there is a deficit and the rates make it up. So if we start giving concessions to some people because they don't have something at the end of the driveway, it is us that has to look at our constituents in the eye and tell somebody else that they do pay more because somebody else pays less. Or we start cutting services. So I encourage you to vote down this motion and continue with the truly fair and equitable approach, and that is to continue with minimum rates on these huts.
Thank you, Councillor Darren. Councillor, are there any other speakers? Councillor Burns.
Thank you very much. But I'd have to start by saying I agree with 100% of Councillor Darren's comments. It's not necessarily about the services that are available at the end of your driveway. There are certainly plenty of people in the Shire that don't have access to a footpath or lights. I have to pay an extra fee to have my rubbish collected because the Shire's rubbish truck doesn't come and collect them from my front door. But that's not the issue here. The issue here is, for everybody else who's paying rates on their property, whether it's a holiday home or the home that they live in, or an investment property or a commercial premises, it's a substantial piece of real estate that is theirs. The issue to me, when it comes to whether or not there's a fair and equitable share of paying their rates, isn't the services we're providing, because everybody chipping in to contribute is part of living in a fair and equitable modern society. But what we're looking at here isn't a home, it's not a business, it's not an industrial block, it's a shack. Now, some of them might be very nice, but at the end of the day, it's a reminder that we're not really that far removed in our modern, fair, equitable society from the days of squatters and drovers that built a little hut in the middle of the bush when nobody was looking so that they had somewhere to camp. Now, it is an odd situation there's probably not too many of these huts still in existence around the world. But we have some. And that's the situation, that's the cards we've been dealt. And from my point of view, I don't think it's a fair and equitable situation to say that someone who is fortunate enough, and let's be fair, the people with these small little shacks, they're a holiday home, it probably is fair to say they are fortunate people in society. They're probably not struggling the way some people who are one paycheck away from homelessness might be. But at the end of the day, it's a shack in the bush, and to say that we should charge it the same rate as a 4x2 in the suburbs doesn't make sense to me, which is why I'm completely in favour of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tempera.
Thank you, Madam President. I concur absolutely with everything that Councillor Burns has said. These are not primary dwelling places, and I do acknowledge that they pay minimum rates to start off with, absolutely. I don't think we can dismiss the value that they add to these shacks, which some might be nice and some might not be, but these people take great care in their area and in their places down there as well. I think we need to be really, really careful of not mixing up the terms equality and equity. They are two totally different things. I also think we need to be really careful of saying if somebody's paying less, then that means that somebody else is paying more, especially with the deputation that was provided this evening about co-responsibility as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tempera. Anyone else? Councillor De Campo, did you want to close?
Lot to take in. Thank you, Madam President, for the opportunity to close this debate and address some of the misleading information that has been put into the room. This was never really about actually how the rates came about. It's about the equity of rates in the Shire. And I'm not sure where to start, but I will start with I absolutely acknowledge that there was a negotiation with the Shire. I was in the room with Peter Keppel. I was negotiating on behalf of the hut owners. In fact, I was the one that achieved the principle that they could trade the leases because they weren't going to allow them to trade the leases. So they are now just like any other lease that's tradable around the state, any pastoral lease. So I completely understand that. And the initial John Picasso National Park Management Plan had all of the huts being removed. So I think that was a good outcome by our Shire, and that's what we should do. We should go to bat for our people, I guess. As for they're not paying their way, they're paying around $1,000. If they were to achieve the 32% reduction in their rate, they're paying about $1,020 plus their lease. I'm sure they pay to DBCA a year. So they are paying their way. I mean, if you talk about rate equity, which is really interesting, because the latest hut in Windy Harbour has just been put on the market for over $600,000. $600,000 in Windy Harbour. The last hut, which only sold at the Donley recently, as last 2 weeks or the last month, it was around $320,000, I believe. So half the rate. And yet they pay the same minimum. And in fact, there are people in this room that own small properties in Manjimup that pay the minimum rate. So there is no equity in rates. If you really want to look at rates and cents in the dollar, there is no equity in rates. Northcliffe aged accommodation pays rates, and yet the Manjimup aged accommodation doesn't pay rates. And I'm fairly sure that Pemberton doesn't pay rates either. So when you talk about equity in rates, if you want to have a big, broad discussion, let's open that book up again, because I'm very happy to do that. And if we want to make sure that everyone pays their correct dues, we will have people screaming, "You're right," from the breaches. And when you talk about fires, it's misleading to say that the Shire, it costs fires, because when there's a big fire like that one, it's a natural disaster. So the federal government takes over and pays for that. So yes, there is resource that comes in, but that's everywhere. If you also talk about fires and rate resource, FPC is buying up large tracts of land in our Shire, and we're talking about $400 each lease at the Donley because they don't get provided any service. FPC is buying up large tracts of land in our Shire, and in fact in Northcliffe, Councillor Batink, in Northcliffe have just bought over 1,000 acres. They will end up transporting 200,000 plus tonne of wood.
Point of order.
No, that was mentioned in, I've written it all down. I'm responding to every comment that was in that, so you can point to order you like. They will transport over 200,000 tonne per rotation on our roads without paying 1 cent in rates. So if we talk about fairness and equity in rates, we need to have a much broader discussion. So this is really about fairness, actually, and it's the starting point of fairness. And I urge you to support the fairness in relation to these huts in the Donnelly. And if there are others that come along, let's deal with them on a case-by-case basis. But I absolutely will support any notice of motion coming from any other councillor to sort out the inequities in rates that we have in this Shire. And I'm sure every other Shire does too, because they're everywhere. Just scratch the surface and they're everywhere. But it doesn't mean we can't deal with them individually on a case-by-case basis. So I commend the motion to you.
Thank you, Councillor De Campo. Can we put that to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? And against? It's carried 5-3. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. Now, 8.3, councillors, you'll find is on page 51 of your agenda. It's actually a notice of motion. 51.
It's on 56.
Oh, 56.
Recommendations, yeah.
Yep. Requests for the state government infrastructure funding in response to the West Coast demersal fishing ban. Councillor De Campo.
Thank you, Madam President.
Yeah, do you want to hang on 2 seconds?
Sorry,
Thank
councillors. Agenda item 9.5.5 on page
56, apparently.
starts on page 51. Is a notice of motion, and it was accidentally put into the main part of the agenda. So we just need to deal with this one out of order or out of sequence.
Yep. Thank you.
In your papers, if you're able to scan through to page around about 50 or 51 for agenda item 9.5.5, because it should have been earlier in the agenda papers.
Thank you. Councillor De Campo.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move that Council 1 formally request the West Australian State Government to allocate a minimum of $10 million in specific grant funding to the Shire of Manjimup for the comprehensive upgrade of essential public infrastructure within the Windy Harbour settlement and Walpole to service the expected increase in visitation to these areas by the recreational fishing community. 2, formally request the State Government also provide specific ongoing operational and financial support to health, bushfire, marine rescue, local volunteer and community services located within the Shire to manage the predicted surge in visitor activity in Windy Harbour and Walpole over the 21-month closure period. And 3, notes and expresses its profound concern with the West Australian State Government's unilateral decision to implement a 21-month ban on boat-based recreational demersal fishing in the West Coast zone effective from Jan 1, 26 to September 27. Noting. Do I need to read the noting? No. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Tempera. Councillor De Campo.
Thank you, Madam President. This is, it's an unexpected notice of motion due to an unexpected announcement. And the reality is there's around 130,000 recreational boat fishing licences in Western Australia. If you percentage that out, it's about 68% are in the West Coast fishing zone, which is about 88,000 recreational fishing boat licences from Mandurah to Augusta. Those people are not going to stop fishing. And what this does is give the ability for the CEO and the President to go out to the media. It legitimises the case for Windy Harbour. In Windy Harbour we have campground issues, we have water issues, we have ablution issues that we've spoken about only in the last 2 meetings here. There are no showers, there is no fishing, there is no fish cleaning station. The car park at the boat ramp is already full, and in fact last Tuesday there were 40 boats at Windy Harbour during the week. 40 boats were counted already. Today there was a boat filling up at the Ampol as I came in heading south. This will have a huge impact when 88,000 people, and let's say it's less than half of that, 30,000 people with $150,000 boats are not going to not fish. And the reality is Windy Harbour is their only port of entry now to get into the ocean. Walpole to a lesser extent because it's more difficult to get through the bight. But Windy Harbour, you can, and in the north, you're not going to travel on a daily basis to go and fish there. But in Windy Harbour, you can jump in a vehicle at 3 in the morning, be on the water by 5 if you're in Bunbury or in Busselton, and that's what people do. And we've already had, I should disclose an impartiality here, but my son has a house at Windy Harbour and my mum and dad have a house at Windy Harbour, and their friends in Busselton are already saying, book us in for fishing, because people who fish love to fish, and they will come. There is examples in the item, if you've read it, where the government have, because of a policy decision, and this is a policy decision, have made infrastructure payments in relation to boat ramps and other things in communities. Broome is listed, a couple of others were listed, and of course then there's the timber industry, a policy decision where there was a transition package. So it's not as if we're asking for something that's unprecedented. We need to go and fight very hard for the community of Windy Harbour to ensure that, one, there's safety there through the cut and the caretakers area, and two, that our very fragile infrastructure over the next 21 months isn't completely and utterly ruined and we're left holding the can. So it really legitimises the argument for the President and the CEO to go and make. It's all very well to say that, we've got friends in government, but the reality is friends in government don't cough up too much money unless there's a bit of a public stoush about it. So I urge you to support the motion and commend it to you.
Councillor De Campo. Councillor Tempera, did you want to speak to the motion?
Absolutely, and just to commend Councillor De Campo's speed and proactivity in this space as well. In the last week or so, I've had people talk to me and ask if the Shire is aware of the impact that it's going to have with every fisherman in a nearby, wherever, hop on their boats and travel over to fish. So I just want to commend Councillor De Campo.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against the motion? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Darren.
Yeah, look, I come from a fishing family, and this is going to, from Geraldton actually, but this is going to have a significant impact. And I think one of the challenges that really needs to be pointed out is you can go north and sure, Kalbarri, but Kalbarri is right on the border, so you would have to get your boat in and go further north, Exmouth, those types of places. Even Walpole to a certain extent. Windy Harbour, on the other hand, is a settlement in an A-class reserve. It is not designed for 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, however many thousand people to all come at one stage. So it is really important that not only do we ensure that the infrastructure is upgraded, and a lot of those, we were only talking about it in my own business, that the nurses' station is only open during the week in Northcliffe. Anybody going to Windy Harbour would have no idea. And as the wife of a doctor, I quite often get the text messages in summertime that say, oh, call around, we've got a fish hook through a gut, or a swollen foot from stepping on a poisonous fish. Those people coming down don't know that the nursing station isn't open on a weekend. They won't realise that the Pemberton Hospital won't likely have a doctor, that the closest place to get medical attention will be Manjimup. And that's over an hour away. So we do need to be making sure we're advocating for, yes, infrastructure funds, but also broader services for the Northcliffe and the Windy Harbour communities, because they aren't designed, and this is a huge change. This is not a slow progression where a community has transitioned into a new centre or a new type of industry. This is a settlement where, again, people are not allowed to live at Windy Harbour. You're not allowed to permanently live there. There is no services. You cannot get an ice cream for your kids from Windy Harbour, let alone milk or bait or ice or fuel. This is going to have a huge impact, and the impact is going to happen like that in about 2 weeks' time. So we do really need to make sure that we're advocating to the government to put supports in place, not only because it's the right thing to do, but also because it is the safe thing to do. I have a lot of concerns about the safety of people going down there, the safety of the environmental impacts that it's going to have, because this is a predominantly beach launch, and we can see all sorts of damage that's going to happen down here. So I'm sure we all commend the motion, but yeah, I would really strongly encourage the state government to take this seriously. This isn't just us having our little whinge too. This is us saying we really foresee some big problems here and we really need some support to be able to rectify it.
Thank you, Councillor Darren. Councillor De Campo, are there any other speakers? Councillor Campo, did you want us to close?
Just to say that in policy decisions and in backing up Councillor Darren's comments, policy decisions cause community angst. And we need to be very clear with the government that this is probably a byproduct of something they didn't even consider, to be honest. But when they built the railway line through various areas to Armidale, they paid the shops. They paid the shops because they were displaced. Pay up, because we're going to be displaced. Our residents are going to be displaced. And I think that for them to pay nothing is, for want of a better word, a piss take.
Thank you, Councillor De Campo. Councillors, can we put that to the vote, please? All those in favour? Carried 8-0, thank you. Okay, officers' reports. For the interest of the gallery, I'll explain how we're about to consider the agenda items for this meeting. All councillors have had the agenda for a week, giving us time to thoroughly review each item. This meeting is the only time that councillors are able to formally debate agenda items. I'll read out each item listed in the agenda. Any councillor will be able to identify an agenda item they wish to debate. These items will be listed on the board behind me. All items not identified by councillors to be debated will be moved in accordance of the officer's recommendation in one motion and listed in the agenda and moved en bloc for voting purposes. If your item is not listed on the board and is moved en bloc, it will be passed as per the officer's recommendation. Following this, council will consider the remaining items in agenda order. Office of the CEO, 9.1.1, 24-25 Shire of Manjimup Annual Report and Notice of Annual Meeting of Electors is absolute and taken out. 9.1.2, Council to Chief Executive Officer delegations from the 17th of December to 25th of February is absolute and taken out. 9.3.1, Monthly Statement of Financial Activity, October 25. 9.3.2, Adoption of Material Variance Percentage, 25-26 financial year. 9.3.3, Shire Financial Payments for October 25. Statutory Planning. 9.5.1, Proposed Bottle Shop Extension at Lot 2 in brackets 109 Giblet Street, Manjimup. The Manjimup Hotel is taken out. 9.5.2, Proposed Revision of Local Planning Policy 6.1.17 Greenlands Estate. 9.5.3, Request for Penalty Fee Waiver for Application of Retrospective Planning Approval for a Holiday House at Lot 2810 in brackets 32 Carey Street, Manjimup is absolute and taken out. 9.5.4, Proposed Budget Adjustment for Finalisation of the Pemberton Mill Workers Cottages Precinct Conservation Management Plan is absolute and taken out. 9.5.5 was the Notice of Motion. 9. Community and Recreation Services. 9.9.1, Review of Tourism Marketing and Promotions undertaken by or funded by Shire of Manjimup Proposed Project Plan is taken out. 9.9.2, Request for Shire of Manjimup to submit a Regional Housing Support Fund application on behalf of Croya Village Incorporated Northcliffe. Technical Services. 9.12.1, Findings related to the examination of the Diamond Resource Recovery Facility Feasibility Project 2025. Works. 9.13.1, Proposed Asphalt Trial, Canundra and Spring All Roads, Manjimup. 9.13.2, Maintaining Regional Roads, Acknowledgement of the Performance Audit Report undertaken by the West Australian Office of the Auditor General. And finally, Advisory Committees. 9.16.1, Unconfirmed Minutes of the Audit and Risk Management Advisory Committee meeting held on the 2nd of December 25. Would someone like to adopt them, please? Councillor De Campo.
Can I move that Council adopt the recommendations contained within the Council officers and committee reports from pages 1 to 86 of the agenda, with the exception of those on the board?
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Daniele. Can we put that to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Is carried 8-0. Thank you, councillor. Thank you, Mr. Omade and Mr. Fallon. Braden. 8-0. Okay. Page 17, 9.1.1, 24-25 Shire Manjimup Annual Report and Notice of Annual Meeting of Electors. Mover. Councillor Mylan.
Move as per the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Burns. Councillor Mylan, did you want to speak too?
Very briefly, I did have a quick chance to look at the annual report and financial report online, and I still like to read a hard copy, so I'll have to look at getting a decent printing press. However, I did want to just commend the actual work that's gone into both those reports, and part of the reason to have them printed is they are more visible and on a bench, on a table, and it's something that I like to, refer to. But what I wanted to commend was the contents. There's a bit of a different layout in there, and some of the statistics and sort of grabs and bits of data about our Shire that are contained in the report, I think are really useful for me as a councillor when I'm talking about the Shire, and people ask me questions and I can't remember, the square metres and the square kilometres and the length of roads and all the stuff off by heart, like some experienced councillors who wrote the 1995 Act might be able to. But or truck drivers for that matter. But look, I just want to say that I commend the motion to you, but just wanted to take the opportunity to acknowledge the work of the officers in doing both of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burns, did you want to speak through the motion? Are there any other speakers? Thank you. Can we put that to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Carried 8-0, and I do extend the invitation to any residents to join us on the 4th of February, Wednesday the 4th of February at 6 o'clock in the adjoining room for the annual electors meeting. Okay, 9.1.2, Council to Chief Executive Officer delegations from the 17th of December to the 25th of February. Mover?
As per officer's recommendation.
Councillor De Campo, is there a seconder? Councillor Burns, thank you. Councillor De Campo, did you want to speak to the motion? Nope. Councillor Burns, thank you. Can we put it to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Carried 8-0, thank you. 9.5.1, proposed bottle shop extension at lot 2 in brackets 109 Giblet Street, Manjimup, the Manjimup Hotel. Councillor De Campo.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move as per officer recommendation with a minor change. Some might say a major change. It is that Council, in accordance with Part 10 of the Shire Manjimup Local Planning Scheme Number 4, grants planning approval for the refurbishment of the existing bottle shop and drive-through at Lot 2, 109 Giblet Street, Manjimup Hotel, in accordance with the submitted plans and specifications attachment 9511 and subject to the following conditions. Those conditions being: 1, the development hereby approved is to be carried out generally in accordance with the plans and specifications submitted with the application, and these shall not be altered or modified without the prior knowledge or written consent of the Shire of Manjimup, reference 123. Remove point 2 completely and make point 3.2. The proposed development shall be clad or coloured to complement either the surroundings in which it is located or the adjoining developments to the satisfaction of the Shire of Manjimup, but the use of reflective materials and colours is not permitted.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Darren, thank you. Councillor De Campo.
Thank you, and I always say when they come to the podium and cry, we buckle. But in fact, that's not why I'm doing this today. It's gone, so it doesn't really matter. The reality is I actually think this is quite onerous. And somebody in this room, again, had a major refurbishment of a shop, but because a development application wasn't required, none of these conditions were required. And in fact, it was a far greater development than what this is. It was a complete gutting of a shop and the complete renewal of the inside of the shop. And in fact, it was a thoroughfare. It is not really true to say in this report that it is a thoroughfare by the hotel when it is a private alleyway. It's owned by the PIOSs and I'm sure leased to the leasee. So I think there are overly onerous conditions, and I think the report is written in the way to, in some ways slightly demonise the applicant. I'm sure it wasn't intentionally done that way. And that potentially is why those conditions are in there. But it is a couple of roller doors and a couple of walls, essentially, and making it a 2-lane to a 1-lane with a private alleyway. We've got significant instances just down the road where there are, far greater things being done with far less scrutiny. Well, now there is more scrutiny, but was done with far less scrutiny. So I'm not sure why we would want to create, in the words of Mr. Fallon's, red tape when it's not required. And in fact, the agenda item, now that I've closed it, does say in point 1 that things have to be carried out in accordance with the plans and specifications submitted in the application, and they shall not be altered or modified without prior knowledge. So all of those other conditions are met by other regulations or regulatory things. Department of Environment for dust, Department of Environment for noise, I think is a matter of interest. I think the rangers can go around if there's vehicles parked on the street and say, have you got a permit to park your vehicle? So all those other things that are mentioned in those plans, which are overly onerous plans in my view for a couple of walls and a couple of roller doors, just don't need to be in there. So I commend the motion with the change to you.
Thank you, Councillor De Campo. Councillor Darren? All good? Are there any other speakers? Fabulous. Can we put that to the vote with the removal of point 2, please? All those in favour? It's carried 8-0. Thank you. Okay. 9.5.3, request for penalty fee waiver for application of retrospective planning approval for Holiday House at lot 2810 in brackets 32 Carey Street, Manjimup. Is there a mover? I need a mover. Thank you. Councillor Burns.
I'll move that as per the officer's recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Betink. Thank you. Councillor Burns, did you want to speak to the motion? No? Councillor Betink, do you want to speak to the motion? Question? Speaking?
I do have a question. If this applicant was to withdraw their application and then reapply, would the fine still apply? Anybody?
Can we defer to the manager of development services? Is that where she is? Something like that. Planning, manager of planning. Thank you.
Through the President, if the applicant was to cease the land use for a period of time and apply while the land use was not being undertaken, then the penalty would not apply.
Subsequent question?
Thank you.
Supplementary question. Perhaps.
Thank you.
What's the period of time?
Generally speaking, a use is not considered to be current if it's not for a 6-month period.
Question?
Can the applicant withdraw the item now if they're in the room?
No. 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 Can I ask a question? Was that advice given to the applicant? In the discussions about the fee waiver and moving forwards with with the fee waiver which they've applied, was that advice given to the applicant?
Just to clarify, Madam President, was you asking about if they ceased the use and reapplied?
Yep.
No, only the fee waiver to legitimise the current land use.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other questions or speakers? Question? No? Okay. Councillor Burns, did you want to take up your right to speak on this? Thank you.
quite often things come to this table that we have to assess as councillors, and I think in my experience in local government, very few things are black and white. Everything is in shades of grey, where we're trying to balance what is right, what is wrong, what is ethical, what is unethical, I guess. And I guess as a very outspoken supporter of the tourism industry, I'm certainly on record saying I will do absolutely everything I can to support tourism and hospitality, as I believe it's a fantastic industry that will support our community moving forward. But at the same time, I feel like what was spoken about setting precedents before, as unfortunate as the situation is, the law is the law. Fees need to be paid. If fees aren't paid, there's other penalties. And I feel like this, as much as it physically pains me to say it, has to fall under that category. When you start waiving fees for one thing and it's on the public record, then it certainly is going to be a situation where more people put their hand up and say, well, you should waive my fees too. So as much as I can certainly sympathise and empathise with small business owners that are trying to do their bit to improve their own situation, I have to support the officer's recommendation on this one.
Thank you. Okay. Can we put
Can I foreshadow that we defer this item to the February 2026 meeting?
Okay, can we put the officer's recommendation to the vote, please? All those in favour? And against? Okay, carried 5-3. Thank you. Where are we? 47. 9.5.3. If you wanted some clarification, if you want to wait till the end, we do have some confidentials. We might be able to give you a bit of clarification at the end if you want some more information on it.
Jason.
Or Joss? No one? Okay. If you just give us just until we get over this item, and we can give you a little bit more clarification about what just happened, so you're clear about what the process was. 9.5.4, proposed budget adjustment for finalisation of the Pemberton Mill Workers Cottages Precinct Conservation Management Plan. Councillor De Campo.
As per officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mylan. Councillor De Campo.
I'd just like to say, Madam President, this is just about like the amount of worlds that fit in the sun. I'm not sure if you know. There are 1.3 million worlds will fit in the sun. That's an amazing statistic, isn't it? 1.3 million, just think about that. Earths will fit in the sun. Can you believe that? What I'm saying to you is this is a very important structure plan, and this is the sunshine of our Shire, this precinct, because of the heritage values that are attached to it. So I urge you to support the motion.
Good lordy. Councillor Mylan, can you top that? Yeah, I didn't think so. 6 6 is a 36. Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Can we put that to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Good grief. Thank you. 8-0. 58. Good lordy. Page 58, 9.9.1, review of tourism marketing and promotions undertaken by or funded by the Shire Manjimup proposed project plan. Is there a mover? Thank you, Councillor Burns. Is there a seconder? Councillor Batink. Thank you, Councillor Burns. Did you want to speak to this motion? Sure. Thanks.
I've heard it said that there are more atoms in a glass of water than there are glasses of water in all the oceans.
Oh,
And somewhere between those two numbers is how important this is, or something, I don't know. Look, as I've said before, I am a very outspoken advocate for the tourism and hospitality industry. I do believe it is a vital part of our community moving forward, and the Shire has a very big role to play in that. But at the end of the day, we are spending other people's money, and we need to make sure we're doing it effectively and efficiently in a way that is equitable and provides equity. So I wholeheartedly believe that this review is a vital first step in the next phase of our involvement in tourism and hospitality.
thank you, Councillor Burns. Councillor Bating, did you want to speak to the motion? Are there any other speakers? Oh,
Unusual, isn't it?
yeah, shocking.
I'm out of water too, so I'm going to croak a bit. That's okay. Look, it's going to sound like I'm speaking against this motion. In fact, I'm speaking for it. Thank you, Councillor Darren. This was born out of the fact that we spend significant amounts of money in various silos right the way through the region, not just the Shire. Some 500,000 or 600,000 we spend plus rentals, and let's not forget that in our community strategic plan, I think it says 75,000 each year to the Southern Forest Food Council, although we have reduced that as a contribution. We give them a building for nothing and they pay no rates, just as a matter of interest. 0 rates, 12.5 million from the government, 0 rates. And then we've got the Warren Blackwood, the Southern Forests and Valleys, which we contribute heavily to in compared to our other partners in the Warren Blackwood Alliance. And then there are the visitor centres. So there are a lot of silos in tourism, and I'm not sure that this recommendation, although I'm assured that it will, because it's a good starting point, completely concur with Councillor Burns that tourism is our and will be our biggest industry going forward. But we need to have a new look. We need to take the puzzle apart, in the words of the CEO, and see how the pieces go back together. And that might be, looking at things well outside of the box, looking at giving all of our money to another group, or looking to try and encourage the Southern Forest Food Council to join forces with the Southern Forests and Valleys, as it should be, because they're trying to promote a brand and they're trying to promote a brand, and they're both doing it seemingly well. And yet we still have only day stay visitors, not overnight visitors. And then there is the money we spend. And then there is the officer time. And we hear constantly that, we have limited time. We're all very busy, and that is true. I'm not saying it's not true. So we should look at alleviating some of that time by potentially a new way of doing it. And on top of that, and I wasn't here the other day, I had to go last Tuesday when Walpole came to see us, it is the delivery of visitor services. It isn't going to be the same in the next 10 years. There'll be electronic delivery of visitor services. And I cottoned onto that, I don't know, stupidly, when I went to a Westfield one day. And there's this big screen, you tap it, and it tells you where to go. I mean, that's what we'll have. We'll have these things in isolation that you can Bluetooth, or Elon's things going over in the sky, you'll be able to give the information down to it, and you'll be able to change it in real time, rather than the door on the visitor centre being locked on a Sunday and people not knowing where they're going, and the restaurant will be able to tick in, it'll be able to enter into its own time if it's not there, or they're closing early or they're opening later, and it'll come up on the screen, and they'll be waterproof, and they can be on the cliff of Windy Harbour, or they can be at the Shannon Basin, or they can be in town in Walpole, and they'll be all solar driven. So it's a great start to looking at how we deliver tourism services. And I think that I commend the item to you. I'm not sure it's written completely like unpacking the puzzle and packing it back together, but I'm sure it'll end up like that. So otherwise we'll just send it back to the boosters. I commend the motion to you.
Thank you, Councillor De Campo. Councillor Burns, did you want to close that? Fantastic, thank you. Can we put that to the vote, please, councillors? All those in favour? Carried 8-0, thank you. Okay, late reports. There are nil. 11 questions from members. 11.1, response to questions from members taken on notice. There are nil. 11.2, questions from members. Nil, fantastic. 12, this is always a scary one. Motions for consideration at the following meeting.
Nil, Madam President, nil.
Lordy McLordy. Okay. 13, new business of an urgent nature introduced by decision of the meeting is nil. 14, now we do have a couple of confidentials to unpack and have a bit of a Okay, so item 14.1.1, proposed shortlisting of expressions of interest for aged care and community care services and assets. The officers yeah, we don't have to read them out.
Oh, do we need to check if anyone's waiting for us?
Oh, is there anyone waiting for us? Oh,
Yeah.
Yep, Joss. Come on in, Joss. Just wait for the masses to come in. That Council 1 shortlist the following proponents who submitted expressions of interest to the aged and community care assets and services. Baptist Care, Hall and Pryor and Respect Group. 2, invite the shortlisted proponents to participate in the next stage of the process by submitting a detailed request for proposal. 3, direct the Chief Executive Officer to investigate the financial and legal implications of the divestment. And 4, endorses the proposed assessment criteria and waiting for evaluating requests for proposal relating to the divestment of the Shire's aged and community care assets and services as outlined below. Continuity of care and service quality 25%, experience and capability 15%, workforce retention and development 15%, infrastructure and asset investment 15%, community engagement and governance 10%, financial offer and viability 20%. 5, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to formally request the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage to amend the management order for reserves 22916 and 15224 Peace Park 1A Edwards Street, Manjimup to include the power to lease, and 5.2, amend the purposes of these reserves to community purpose or similar suitable purpose. 6, direct the Chief Executive Officer to bring the proposals and the due diligence back to Council anticipated in the first quarter of 2026. And 7, that the resolution be read aloud. Okay. The vote carried 8-0. Don't have to do that. Fabulous. 14.1.2, the proposed financial assistance agreement for the off-road vehicle grants program. That Council accept the proposed financial assistance agreement for the off-road vehicle area grants program as contained in attachment 14.1.2 in brackets 1. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to execute all associated documents of the financial assistance agreement. 3, amend the Shire Manjimup's 25-26 annual budget to recognise grant income from the Department of Local Government, Industry, Regulation and Safety and associated expenditure to establish an off-road vehicle area in accordance with the below table. And 4, and 4, acknowledge that the establishment of an off-road vehicle area and therefore the commencement of any works funded by this grant is dependent on the outcome and the recommendations of the off-road vehicle area feasibility study, which is currently underway. Oh, okay. And 5, read it aloud. And 4.1.3 remains confidential. Okay. Applications for leave of absence. Neil, before we close, I would just like to acknowledge my very capable left-hand lady, who has been with us for 17 years, and tonight is her final torturous council meeting that she no longer has to put up with us. So thank you very much, Gay, for putting up with us. I'd like to say that we'd miss you, but I know that I'm going to see you, so it's not going to make any difference. I'd just like to wish everyone a safe and Merry Christmas, and there being no further business to discuss, I close the meeting at 7:30. Thank you all very much, and Merry Christmas.